It is August 12, 1570. Inside the shadowed chambers of the Kremlin Palace, Moscow trembles. Tsar Ivan IV, known to history as Ivan the Terrible, commands that a rival prince be brought before his court. The accusation: conspiracy against the crown. But Ivan's chosen punishment is not a simple execution. It is a spectacle, a display of absolute power wrapped in humiliation before nobles and noblewomen alike. The prince is stripped of his garments and dignity. Ivan watches coldly as executioners castrate the man, mocking him as the court stands in horrified silence. The broken noble is then paraded naked through the streets of Moscow, a living warning before his final execution. This grotesque blend of pain, shame, and public degradation became a signature of Ivan's reign. Yet he was not alone in wielding cruelty as theater. Across centuries and empires, monarchs crafted punishments that fused bodily torment with psychological destruction. Acts meant to annihilate honor as well as life. These were not executions. They were performances of domination, lessons carved into flesh to remind the living that no one stood above the will of the sovereign. This is the story of kings who turned punishment into ritual humiliation, rulers who used the body itself as a weapon of terror. Presented by script historians, Ivan IV ruled Russia from 1547 to 1584. The first Tsar of all Russia, his reign began with promise but descended into madness after the death of his beloved wife Anastasia in 1560. Grief curdled into paranoia. From that paranoia, Ivan created the Oprichnina, a private state within Russia, ruled by his black-clad personal guard, the Oprichniki. These men answered only to him and committed atrocities in his name. A German mercenary, Heinrich von Staden, who once served among them, recorded the horrors he witnessed. According to his memoirs, Ivan not only ordered tortures, but often participated himself. His preferred punishment for suspected traitors was public castration, performed in city squares or even within the Kremlin itself. Ivan would jeer at his victims, asking mockingly if they now felt loyal. Chroniclers tell that he humiliated the widows of the executed, stripping them before the court, before sending them to convents or gifting them to his guards. During the 1570 massacre of Novgorod, Ivan's cruelty reached new depths. He ordered women to be publicly violated as punishment for alleged treason. Watching from a high platform, Ivan observed it all, convinced that humiliation was more effective than death. In his mind, true punishment was not killing the body but annihilating the soul. Centuries earlier in Cairo, another ruler shared this obsession. Al-Hakim bi-Amr Allah, the 6th Fatimid Caliph of Egypt, ruled from 996 to 1021 A. Man remembered for eccentric decrees and unrestrained cruelty. His laws often bordered on madness. He forbade women from leaving their homes, even ordering shoemakers to stop crafting women's shoes. Those who defied him were stripped and whipped in the streets of Cairo. Chroniclers like Al-Makrizi recorded even darker tales. Merchants selling forbidden foods were castrated publicly, a supposed act of moral purification. Men accused of lustful glances were mutilated and forced to live disguised as women, condemned to eternal shame. When Al-Hakim uncovered plots against him, he made examples of his ministers stripped, paraded backwards on donkeys, castrated and executed. His reign ended as mysteriously as it began. One night in 1021, he vanished into the desert and was never seen again. In France, King Louis XVI, the universal spider, wove his power through fear. Ruling from 1461 to 1483, Louis built cages so small a man could neither stand nor lie down, iron prisons that symbolized royal vengeance. But for some, he added humiliation. Prisoners displayed half-naked before the public, mocked by crowds. Cardinal Jean Ballou spent 11 years in such a cage. Others suffered stranger fates, forced marriages between noble daughters and peasants, or even royal executioners, ensuring family honor was crushed forever. In Judea, King Herod the Great turned his paranoia inward. When he suspected his wife Mariamne of infidelity, he subjected her servants to torture until they confessed under the most degrading conditions. Her public trial was a spectacle of humiliation. Before her execution in 29 BC, Herod's cruelty extended to his enemies' families, ordering their wives and daughters publicly violated before death. For Herod, terror was a political instrument, and shame was its sharpest edge. Across the Carpathians, Vlad III of Wallachia, known to history as Vlad the Impaler, ruled through horror. Between 1456 and 1462, he refined impalement into an art of terror. Chronicles describe how women accused of adultery were impaled through their most private parts, their naked bodies displayed as warnings. Vlad punished traitors with a special cruelty. A young noble caught in adultery was castrated, his mutilated remains forced into his mouth before impalement. Vlad watched, feasting during the act. To him, fear was loyalty made visible. In India, Sultan Muhammad bin Tughlaq of the Delhi Sultanate ruled from 1325 to 1351, a genius whose brilliance often descended into madness. The traveler Ibn Battuta, who served at his court, witnessed punishments that blended spectacle and shame. Rebels were paraded through Delhi in donkey skins. High officials were stripped, mocked, and mutilated before death. When Tughlaq discovered a courtier's affair within the royal harem, he ordered the man publicly whipped on his genitals while the woman watched before she was stoned to death. For Tughlaq, humiliation was moral correction. For history, it was madness. The traveler Ibn Battuta, who served at his court, witnessed punishments that blended spectacle and shame. Rebels were paraded through Delhi in donkey skins. High officials were stripped, mocked, and mutilated before death. When Tughlaq discovered a courtier's affair within the royal harem, he ordered the man publicly whipped on his genitals while the woman watched, before she was stoned to death. For Tughlaq, humiliation was moral correction. For history, it was madness. In England, King Henry VIII wielded humiliation with political precision. His trials of Anne Boleyn and Catherine Howard were designed not just to condemn, but to disgrace. In public courts, the most explicit accusations of adultery were read aloud, forcing the queens to endure degradation before execution. Henry also used marriage as punishment, forcing noble women into unions with men of low birth to dishonor their families. Power for Henry meant ownership of bodies, hearts, and reputations alike. The Abbasid Caliph al-Mustansir of Baghdad, ruling from 1226 to 1242, cloaked brutality in piety. He ordered adulterers to confess publicly in mosques before being paraded naked through the city, an ordeal of shame before stoning. Men accused of sodomy were first castrated, then burned alive before the assembled populace. His punishments claimed divine justification, but served as theater of control. Peter of Castile, the cruel to his foes, ruled Spain from 1350 to 1369. Chroniclers tell how he paraded chained enemies through Seville, half naked before their own subjects. When he captured rebellious nobles, he enslaved their widows and daughters, giving them to soldiers or forcing them to marry executioners. Degradation made law. Even the Byzantine Emperor Justinian and his wife Theodora, remembered for law and piety, were shadowed by allegations of cruelty. In the Secret History, the historian Procopius accused Theodora of running private prisons for women, where punishment blurred into perverse ritual. Justinian's laws of 533 imposed castration for sodomy, carried out in public, a spectacle of moral correction. And though Theodora founded a convent for reformed prostitutes, some were sent there against their will, prisoners beneath the veil. 10 rulers, 10 worlds, each, in their own time, used intimate humiliation as a weapon of rule. Their cruelty was not random, it was policy. A means to erase dignity, to destroy honor before taking life. In their courts, the body became the battlefield, where obedience was carved into flesh. These horrors were born in eras where the human body was property of the crown, where pain was politics and shame was law. Yet even then, chroniclers recorded revulsion, proof that cruelty could shock even in crueler times. Across continents and centuries, the pattern repeats. When power becomes absolute, it turns inward, seeking control not only over life and death, but over the soul itself. The history of these punishments is not mere darkness for its own sake. It is a mirror. It shows what happens when rulers become gods and human dignity becomes disposable. From the ashes of these empires, humanity learned, slowly, painfully, that the only safeguard against tyranny is the rule of law, the separation of power, and the belief that no one, not even a king, owns the bodies or honor of others. The journey, from public castration and forced humiliation to human rights and justice, was long, built upon centuries of suffering. The victims of these rulers are gone, their names forgotten. But their agony endures as warning. When power is absolute, cruelty becomes divine, and humanity becomes its sacrifice.